Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on First and Third at 3. We are talking about our listing audit, how those listings feed, and what you guys can do to help your agents make sure that those listings show up where they should be showing up. So let's go ahead and jump right in. This is not a new form. We've shared this form in the past. If this is not in the ASC new drive, we'll make sure that we get it in there. I'm not real sure unless Jessica or Tia are on, if they could let me know, but we'll make sure that we get this put into the drive if it's not already. So, pretty standard. The listing goes in the MLS, whether you as staff are putting it in or the agents themselves are putting it in, and then it does go out into the World Wide Web. So we know it comes over to Account Tech, which feeds our transaction plan, which currently today is what it's called, which feeds Dash for all of our brands. And then it feeds over, this is Coldwell Banker terminology here, but it works the same for Sotheby's and for Century 21. It goes to the local brands information after it's in Dash. It will also feed realtor.com. So the listings themselves go to realtor.com directly, but if you're doing any updating in transaction plan, that will be sent to realtor.com to override what comes over from the MLS, as long as you're doing it in Account Tech to feed Dash. The local MLS also feeds directly to coldwellbanker.com, but again, anything that you're updating, if you're adding photos for luxury because it's watermarked and you don't want watermarked or you need higher resolution, you can upload the photography to Account Tech to override the MLS feed to coldwellbanker.com, but the listings themselves come over directly from the MLS. Same thing with MoxieWorks. So it does get fed directly from the MLS into MoxieWorks. We all know that people now feed from Dash, but our listings come over directly from the MLS. And then we actually feed our List Hub, which is the Schmidt version of List Hub, is fed from a MoxieWorks feed. And then you can see that's also feeding over to Listings to Leads as well. And then, of course, some of the third-party sites like Zillow and Trulia, they're getting direct MLS feeds from the local MLSs as well. So as you can imagine, with any kind of feed, any single layer of information can either be not sent incorrectly, delayed being sent, and this is kind of how we can work and troubleshoot some of those issues with our listings. So again, if that's not in the drive, we'll make sure that we get it put into the drive. So because Account Tech really is kind of the cornerstone before it goes out to anywhere else, we do want to be checking Account Tech to make sure the listing fed over, it fed the media over correctly, it fed the status over correctly. And what we learned with an issue earlier this week in Ohio was it did not feed over the property type correctly. So the listing never syndicated because it never got to Dash because there was a submission error. So we'll go through some of these tips and tricks and show you where you can check on some of these things, especially when it comes to commercial and global luxury. So we'll pop over to Darwin Cloud, not new to any of you guys, right? We've all been there before. And we are going to be talking about properties. So we're going to be talking about the properties tab right here. I'm just going to go ahead and search. So somebody either unmute and tell me an address or type it in the chat box of a new listing that you've had in your office. I know we've had listings. Our listings are up week over week. All right, I'll just pick one. So we'll pick active, we'll pick on Premier, we'll pick on, oh, I got one. All right, thank you. Thank you, Caroline. We'll take that one because it came in first. Lindsay, you were a close second, as were you, Sharon. So let's go ahead and cancel. We'll go to search. 760, Martin, check. All right, so we can search for the address, just that easy. You can go into show advanced filter options. If you have a light listing load in your office, maybe you only have 10 to 12 listings, you can pull all of your listings at once by going in here, going to active, and pulling down your office. So that is an opportunity as well. So now here's our active listing. It was listed just Monday. When you click on that listing, it pulls up the full listing. So a couple of things that you want to check, of course, is make sure the address came over correctly. Make sure that the asking price is in here correctly. And then right here, this is residential, but on this property type, that was the issue with the commercial one. It was not sending because it did not have the property type come over. So the immediate quick fix is to just go ahead and choose the property type and submit it. That will get it over to Dash pretty immediately, so that in the overnight feed, it'll hit all the other sites. But do let us know if that's happening, because ultimately we want to correct the feed to make sure that it is going to pull in the next time, but you can immediately fix it just in order to expedite getting that listing out. So that is one thing you want to check here, is all three of these things need to be filled in, or they will not syndicate over to Dash. And then of course we know they don't syndicate anywhere else either. Outside of jumping into Dash and checking to see if the listing is there, if over to the left right here, if you go into the submissions tab, it's going to tell you if it was submitted or not. If it is not submitting, it's going to give you something like this validation failed. Doesn't mean it doesn't eventually get there. So you want to make sure that you go to your most recent submission to make sure that it's being submitted over. Now this does have a, Jessica, if you're on, remind me what it's called, but it's basically transcribing some data, and that's what's giving you that information there. But you're going to know in the result type, if it did not send, it's going to let you know, and it's usually a business violation error, and that's because it's not being accepted into Dash for that particular reason. So do check that submission tab, because obviously if it's not getting to Dash, it's not getting anywhere online. And that's the important part that we want to check here. You can also now check your media. I may have lied. It's not coming up. It may be because it was last modified at 1:30. That I'm not sure. Again, Jessica, if you're on, feel free to jump in. But here on the features, nope, not features. Bear with me for 1 second. Maybe I should pick a different one. 1 second. Okay. Forget that bumbling section right there. We'll forget about that. We'll jump right into here. The other thing to check, if it's not syndicating correctly, if it's not showing up on coldbanker.com, it's not showing up on the Moxie sites, is you can come over here and make sure that it's checked to show on internet. You can also make sure that the address is showed to check on internet. Now, if it's a seller and they don't want their address out there, doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does, you can uncheck that. It'll still syndicate over, but it's not going to show the address. So listing will be there, and the address itself will just be hidden. If exclude from submission is checked, that's not submitting. That sometimes once in a while random checks happen. So if that is happening and that's checked, it's never going to get to Dash. It's never going to syndicate over. So that could be an issue as well. So just make sure that if there is a problem, just do some of these light troubleshooting issues first. And then if you are, if you can't tell why it's not sending, absolutely reach out, of course. But those are a few things that you can check first. And keep in mind that submission tab here is what's going to show you whether it's gone to Dash or not. So super useful. And Caroline, we may need to check on this because I'm not seeing any remarks on here. The agents came over, so that's a good thing. You can see here. Oh, this is buyers agents. Well, we'll take a look at this. Let me go back and search for one of the other ones. All right, so make sure you're checking your dates too when you're pulling a listing. This particular one sold in 2021 and it's relisted again, so good for that agent. So again, make sure all three of those things are filled in. Over here, the correct boxes are checked. We want to show the address. We want to show on internet. We're going to come over here to submission. And again, this is where it's going to tell you if it did not get submitted. It's going to show you clearly right here. And a lot of times the business violations, it's hard to tell what it's actually talking about. So if there's one that's stumping you, don't hesitate to reach out. But again, that will tell you if it was submitted or not. So really what we want to be doing is checking on these key things for our agents, right? Our agents are busy Even if they put it in MLS themselves, we just want to make sure that in the next day we go and check and make sure that it's syndicating out everywhere. Now, for this particular one, it's not global luxury, but if it happened to be global luxury, this step does need to occur on the global luxury listings. And on a feature, you want to click plus. For group of features, you want to go down to scroll, special program. And from special program, you want to choose global luxury. You can check the reviewed box. It's not going to change the syndication. I just like to check it because it's a checkbox, and why not? And then click save. And then once the special program and the global luxury are in there, you click save and submit. That's what's going to tell Dash once it's submitted through that it needs to be on the global luxury website. Now we're having a ton of issues with coldwellbankerluxury.com. So please check your global luxury listings. If they're not syndicating over, please let us know. There's been a ton of issues. They're relaunching a new global luxury website, hopefully in January of 2024. So they're not doing a whole lot of maintenance on the current one, but there is still things that we can do. We can reach out to their help desk and get those properties to show up correctly. So on global luxury, on your features tab, make sure that you are adding it again as special program, and then global luxury. That will submit through and tell Dash that yes, this is global luxury. It doesn't go off price alone, and two reasons for that. Each zip code is a little different on what is considered to be global luxury. It's the top 10% of the market. So you can head over to My CV Desk and go to the global luxury lookup tool if you want to know what that threshold is. But the other reason is not every property that's over the threshold is actually global luxury, right? Sometimes it's a shack on a very nice piece of property. So we have to just make sure that that property actually is global luxury. Now, some of our regions have global luxury ASCs that can kind of help do this for the whole region. Outside of that, we do ask that you just kind of keep an eye on this. It's a little bit of quality control, a little QC for us, just to make sure that those are going over when they need to and not going over when they don't need to. So now let me go ahead and search for a commercial property. All right, so commercial gets a little bit more complicated, and if you deal with a lot of commercial leases, you'll know what I'm talking about. But for your standard commercial sale, again, these three things need to be filled out: commercial sale, an office building, or whatever the property type might be. Again, that issue in Ohio was the property type didn't come over, so it never syndicated. So again, check your three things here. Make sure that the boxes are checked properly. If you go into submission, again, it's going to tell you if it was syndicated or not. It will always tell you your result type. Sometimes you have to wait a minute after you submit, and I'm super impatient. But sometimes it does take a hot second to give you your results. So that's how you can know if it's syndicated. And then if it's back to our flow chart, if it's not showing up on, coldwellbanker.com, check account tech, check Dash, make sure it's in there. If it's still not, you can open up a help desk ticket. If it's on coldwellbanker.com, but it's really should be commercial and it's not showing up on cbcworldwide.com, again, just reach out, because usually there's a step in the chain here of a problem. Either something didn't come over correctly or something got changed, so it's not syndicating correctly. There's a bit of a problem with commercial leases currently getting from account tech to Dash. So again, if you have that and if you're having problems with that, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know, and we can go ahead and give you some help to make sure that those listings are syndicated. So again, we'll make sure this is in our ASC drive. And then as you have new listings come up, please make sure that they are getting into account tech and they are getting into Dash, because that's how we'll make sure for sure that they're going to show up on all of our websites. Again, if you are in Darwin and you have a few extra minutes, maybe in the morning when you're just waking up, maybe you want to go into properties, go to active, pick your company, pick your office, And then you can get a list of all of your active listings, and then you can kind of work through them and just double check on them, make sure they're showing up everywhere that they should be. Obviously, you would want to cross check this with MLS, because if the initial feed from MLS to account tech was broken or something didn't go right, they're not going to be in account tech. So you would want to cross check it with your MLS as well. But as you know, new listings are coming on. If you just check them one at a time, it'll really help our agents know that their properties are syndicating and marketing correctly. So I'll go back to the listing feed flow chart. What questions do you guys have for me? No questions?
I have a question for you. Fairly new here, and I understand the global luxury and how to look up to see if the property qualifies for that. But is that something as an ASC that I would go ahead and do without notifying the agent that I'm putting it in that type of listing?
Yes, yes. So if you have that listing in your office, and you can tell pretty quick from photos, right, if it's going to be considered global luxury. So absolutely, if you want to check your thresholds, you go into desk.
Yeah, I know how to do all that.
Okay. So yes, absolutely, we're asking the ASCs to mark that as global luxury. If it's a question, if you're not sure, either ask the agent or talk to your manager, and they'll be able to make that final decision for you. But usually they're pretty easy, to tell if they're global luxury or not, as long as, of course, they're above the threshold.
Right. Okay. So there's no special qualifications that the listing agent has to have in order for us to do that. It's just
Nope. So for a list, yep. The listing that itself will syndicate through to global luxury. If the agent's not certified, then it works a little bit differently with how they show up on the site, but it doesn't affect the listing itself.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was a great question. Brenda asked if a property qualifies for global luxury for price because it's lakefront or something, but the house isn't that attractive. We can still syndicate it through. Obviously, a lot of times it is the land, right? That's really the draw there. I would just work with the agent to make sure that they feel good about the photos that are syndicating, because they may want those photos in the MLS, but they may not want them to syndicate to the websites. At that point, you can do that kind of updating in transaction plan or cloud if the media is working, which I didn't check on another listing. So you can talk to the agent about that, but in that particular case, you may want to only syndicate photos of the land and maybe not syndicate photos of the house. So again, agent decision, not your decision to have to make, but if you can have that conversation with the agent, that is an option. They can have all the photos in the MLS for the local agents, but you can then update that in Transaction Plan or Darwin Cloud to remove the photos that they don't necessarily want on coldbankerluxury.com. But it is an all or nothing. So if the photos are removed in Account Tech, they will affect Coldwell Banker Luxury, coldwellbanker.com, and also the Moxie website. But that is a possibility. Great question. What other questions? Great. Well, I appreciate your time this afternoon. As always, if you are doing an audit and you see a listing that's just for whatever reason not syndicating, don't hesitate to reach out, either Jessica, myself, and a lot of times we have to coordinate with the help desk too, just to figure out what's going on with this particular listing. So we appreciate your helping out with this. And if you have any questions, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. Thanks, everyone.